Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the International Virtual Conference on Exploring Connectivity in the Bay of Bengal region, the importance of India's Northeast, 5th and 6th March 2021, organized by Observer Research Foundation, Kolkata, in collaboration with the Consulate General of Japan in Kolkata and the Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. Let us begin the program with the inaugural session. May I invite our panelists, Dr. Nilanjan Ghosh, Director, Observer Research Foundation, Kolkata; Dr. Anusha Basu Rai Chaudhuri, Senior Fellow, Observer Research Foundation, Kolkata; His Excellency Nakamura Yutaka, Consul General, Consulate General of Japan in Kolkata; Ms. Riva Ganguly Das, Secretary East, Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, New Delhi; Ambassador Tariq Karim, Ambassador, Political Analyst and Independent Consultant; and Lieutenant General Subrata Shah, retired, PVSM, UISM, VSM, Director, School of Military Affairs, Strategy and Logistics, Rashtriya Raksha University, Member, National Security Advisor Board. I request Dr. Ghosh to chair the session. Dr. Ghosh.
Thank you, Shohini. Her Excellency Riva Ganguly Das, His Excellency Nakamura Yatuka, His Excellency Ambassador Tariq Karim, Lieutenant General Subrata Shah, my colleague at ORF, Dr. Anusha Basu Rai Chaudhuri, dignitaries on the other side of the screen, my colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all at this event on exploring connectivity in the Bay of Bengal region, importance of India's Northeast, organized by ORF's Kolkata Center in partnership with the Consulate General of Japan in Kolkata and Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. This is indeed an important event as we envisage. As such, we are at a defining moment of human civilization as we rise like phoenix from the ashes, recovering from the economic slumber due to the threats posed by the global pandemic. Even prior to the pandemic, the Bay of Bengal region's importance in the geostrategic space of the Indo-Pacific was paramount. The frequent references of Beamstick more as a region and possibly less as a platform over the last 5-6 years in many academic and policy papers, as also popular articles, bear ample testimony for that. From that viewpoint, the importance of India's East and Northeast is tremendous. This is from two perspectives. One, from the perspective of connectivity within the Beamstick and the Indian Ocean Ring, and second, from the immense potential of India's Northeast in providing the basic and fundamental assets to foster regional development at various scales. Now, this is a region that presents itself with a huge pool of natural capital, a growing population that presents itself with human capital along with the growth of universities and institutions, though the physical connectivity component seems to be lacking to a certain extent, thereby signifying the dearth of physical connectivity. UNEP's notion of inclusive wealth talks about a combination of natural, physical, social, and human capitals. Now, it is within ORF's recent research that has proved that financial capital, say FDI for foreign direct investment, that gets drawn towards those destinations where these enabling conditions of the four capitals are present. Now, Northeast of India is in a unique position where this assessment needs to be made. It is very interesting to note that in 2019, there was a summit of the Himalayan states in Mussoorie, where the Himalayan state requested for a green bonus from the Finance Commission of India. The entire Northeast was part of the summit, classified as the Eastern Himalayan states. However, the subsidization of the Northeast is not only important from the ecological perspective, in the way it has been envisaged in the context of the green bonus, but from a broader perspective of connectivity, engendering trade and investment, and converting the region as a hinterland for providing productive inputs for developing growth hubs in the Bay, namely Kolkata, Dhaka, and Bangkok in the present BIMSTEC setup. This will also have a greater connotation for the Indo-Pacific geostrategic and geoeconomic issues. So with these few comments, let me yet again welcome you all. I'm sure that the deliberations of the next 2 days will be great, and we will be able to come up with actionable options. Yet again, let me thank the Japanese Consulate in Kolkata and the Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, for having associated with us in this endeavor. And with these few words, let me pass on the baton to my colleague, Dr. Anusha Boshurai Chaudhary, for introduction of the theme.
Thank you, Dr. Ghosh. Good morning to all dignitaries. Good morning to our friends, those who are joining us from different parts of India, Bangladesh, UK, and also good afternoon to our guests, those who are joining this program from Tokyo. It is my pleasure to introduce the theme of our conference, which we initially decided to organize last year same time. The unprecedented pandemic, COVID-19, has compelled us to postpone this program, but we are very happy that we have been able to organize it today in collaboration with Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, and of course, Consulate General of Japan in Kolkata, and Government of Japan in Tokyo. Well, we all know how COVID-19 has changed our lives and has started changing the entire global economy, uh, affecting manufacturing, supply chains, and the movement of people and goods. At this juncture, a crucial question which comes in our in forefront is that what would be the lasting impact of COVID-19 on the global economy. But simultaneously, I think it is also important to note or to keep it in our consideration that we are living in an age of interdependency. In order to develop a functional and fruitful system of interactions, certain links are extremely necessary, cutting across physical links, diplomatic and political exchanges, people-to-people linkages or interconnections, and very importantly, commercial or trade links. And in the last few years, as we all know that connectivity has become a buzzword to describe all such links. In the geopolitical scenario today, the need for India to assume a more prominent and proactive role is increasingly becoming imperative. There has been a major shift in India's geopolitical vision and policy towards its extended neighborhood in Asia. The invitation of BIMSTEC member states in Prime Minister Narendra Modi's swearing-in ceremony held in 2019 and or Goa retreat in Summit, East Asia Summit indicate India's multifaceted engagement centered around the Bay of Bengal region, ASEAN, and the wider Indo-Pacific. For India, BIMSTEC may be helpful in achieving two major goals in national development as well as fulfilling its strategic aspiration to cater to the wider concept of Indo-Pacific and also an Indian Ocean community. It is a natural platform to fulfill India's key foreign policy priorities of neighborhood first and act east. It is expected that India's northeast may emerge as a hub of connectivity, while the BIMSTEC Connectivity Master Plan poses immense emphasis on this region. But I think it is very important to understand in this context the local socio-economic, cultural and political conditions and that juxtapose these with the greater potential for commercial growth, scientific and technological exchanges to strengthen collaboration across national borders and peaceful interdependence among nations. Strategically, the Bay of Bengal is located at the heart of Indo-Pacific and its auxiliary, the Andaman Sea, is India's geostrategic gateway into the wider waters. Given the increasing salience of the Indo-Pacific construct in the current global scenario discourse, India has also outlined her vision for a free, open, inclusive and rule-based order in the Indo-Pacific based on respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity of all nations, peaceful resolution of disputes through dialogue, and adherence to international rules and laws. Conceptualizing Indo-Pacific as a natural geopolitical, geostrategic region, India has launched the Indo-Pacific Ocean Initiative to focus on several central pillars conceived around multilateral security, maritime security, maritime ecology, resources, capacity building, and resource sharing, disaster risk reduction and management, science, technology, and academic cooperation, and last but not the least, very important, trade or commercial connectivity. There is also a need to understand the dynamics of collaboration between the member countries of the Bay of Bengal and also in the Indo-Pacific region with a special reference to other stakeholders, including the transnational agencies. Given the wide experience of Japan in the field of connectivity and its active engagement in infrastructural projects in this region in general, and IPOI in particular, will prove to be a great fillip for the connectivity initiatives in the Indo-Pacific region. Keeping all these facets in consideration, our conference is divided into three major business sections based on three following themes. The first session will be on proximity to connectivity, importance of India's Northeast in BIMSTEC. The second one will be highlighting the important issues related to trade, development, and its impact on India's Northeast. And the third business session will be on Bay of Bengal as stepping stone for the wider Indo-Pacific. With these few words, I think I'll stop here and hope to have a very engaging conversation ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Vasura Chaudhary, for introducing the theme. May I now request His Excellency Nakamura Yotokak, Consulate General of Japan in Kolkata, for addressing the audience. I think I'd just like to pass this on to you because this is getting recorded, so I'll just pass this on to you.
Dr. Niranjan Ghosh, Director, Observer Research Foundation, Kolkata Chapter. Ms. Diba Ganguly Das, Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. Ambassador Tariq Karim, Lieutenant General Subrata Saha. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure for me to address today's international webinar organized by ORF Kolkata Chapter. I'd like to express my sincere appreciation for the kind invitation to this occasion to share Japan's commitment to contributing peace, prosperity, and stability, including a robust and valued partnership with India in the region. Japan envisages new vision for the comprehensive development of the Indo-Pacific region and seeks to build enduring partnership with the Indo-Pacific states, including India. In the backdrop of the changing global order and growing shift in global balance of power accentuated by the pandemic. Today, as a result of the shift in global balance of power, the world is becoming increasingly complex and uncertain. It is the order of international community that ensures continued stability and prosperity for the broad range of countries, but it should not be achieved by force or coercion. The international community needs to maintain and reinforce its rules that form such order. It is also necessary to craft new rules to meet the emerging challenges of the changing world and emerging needs. Today, Indo-Pacific region is confronted with various challenges such as piracy, terrorism, proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, natural disasters, and unilateral attempt to change the status quo. In such a deteriorating security environment, Japan aims to contribute to peace, security, and stability and prosperity across the region as a whole, with the vision of promoting rule-based international order by engaging in comprehensive and sustainable regime of cooperation with the Indo-Pacific nations. Japan seeks to achieve this aim to realizing her vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific. Japan's vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific is based on the idea that the key for stability and prosperity of the international community is dynamism that is created by combining two continents, Asia, that is rapidly growing, and Africa, which possesses huge potential of growth, and two oceans, free and open Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean. Today, the dynamism created by the confluence of the Pacific and Indian Oceans has become an engine of economic growth for the entire world. Japan's free and open Indo-Pacific vision reflects our goal to promote rule-based international order through comprehensive effort for promotion and consolidation of fundamental principles, economic prosperity, with connectivity and commitment for peace, security, and stability, attaching importance to ASEAN's centrality and unity. Three pillars to realize our vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific are: first, promotion and establishment of rule of law, freedom of navigation, free trade, etc. Second, pursuit of economic prosperity by improving connectivity and strengthening economic partnership, including EPA, FTAs, and investment treaties. Third, commitment for peace and stability by capacity building on maritime law enforcement, humanitarian assistance, and disaster relief cooperation, etc. Japan's free and open Indo-Pacific vision is inclusive and does not intend to create a new institution nor compete with existing institutions. Our Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga and Foreign Minister Toshimitsu Motegi proactively seek to promote the importance of rule-based maritime order in the Indo-Pacific region. Japan views that any country cannot single-handedly maintain and enhance the rule-based order alone, but needs to cooperate with a broad range of partners who share the vision of free and open Indo-Pacific. In addition, this rule-based order should be maintained and should not be deteriorated under the pandemic circumstances of COVID-19. Japan views its growing partnership with India as crucial in promoting rule-based order in this region. We found a growing convergence between our free and open Indo-Pacific vision and India's initiative, Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative, based on our shared value of upholding rule of law, importance of international law in particular, the United Nations Convention of Law of the Sea, freedom of navigation and overflight, and peaceful resolution of dispute, among others. While Japan takes the lead in the seventh pillar of the initiative, with connectivity at the core, and indeed supporting this webinar as part of its commitment. We also very much look forward to seeing India's leadership to materialize the initiative and how India will enjoy support from and collaborate with broader stakeholders and countries, including South and Southeast Asia, to achieve her goals. Japan intends to expand its cooperation with countries in the Indo-Pacific region, including India, in enhancing regional connectivity and capacity building assistance, such as strengthening capacity of maritime law enforcement and maritime domain awareness, and other human resource development, and in such fields as humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, anti-piracy, counter-terrorism, and non-proliferation. By enhancing hard connectivity through quality infrastructure and soft connectivity, that is people-to-people connectivity within the Indo-Pacific region, Japan supports to form a foundation which allows the region to grow and develop economically together in an autonomous manner. Japan is focusing on enhancing both land and maritime connectivity over the Pacific and Indian Ocean through quality infrastructure investment, which include elements of Japan's priority, such as openness, transparency, economic efficiency, and debt sustainability. On the implementation side, Japan has been taking robust measures in order to address global infrastructure financing gap. In 2016, Japan announced its initiative entitled Expanded Partnership for Quality Infrastructure to provide approximately $200 billion in public and private capital for 5 years from 2017 to 2021 for infrastructure projects across the world, including Indo-Pacific region. In India's northeastern region, Japan is working together with India for the development of the region through Japan-India Act East Forum, which is co-chaired by Japan's ambassador and India's foreign secretary. Japan has been funding development projects in the various fields under the ODA in India's northeast, which are in total worth approximately 160 billion rupees. This region is strategically important as it is a gateway that connects South and Southeast Asia. Also, it is where India's Act East policy and Japan's free and open Indo-Pacific vision find convergence. Our government's important conceptualization, like confluence of the two seas and Quadrilateral Initiative, Arc of Freedom and Prosperity, Asia's Democratic Security Diamond, and the latest Free and Open Indo-Pacific, all refer to India as a key partner of Japan in the Indo-Pacific region. It was in the joint session of Indian Parliament in 2007. The former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe floated the idea of confluence of the Indian and the Pacific Oceans in his address as the dynamic coupling as seas of freedom and prosperity. India occupies a key strategic location in the Indo-Pacific region along the critically important sea lanes of communication for global trade and energy flows. Japan has been expanding its engagement with India in enhancing peace, stability, prosperity, maritime security, and connectivity in the Indo-Pacific region through a wide range of bilateral, trilateral, and multilateral frameworks of cooperation, which including exercises such as Japan-India Maritime Bilateral Exercise, or Malabar Exercise, as well as quadrilateral dialogue among Japan, India, US, and Australia. Recap regional cooperation agreement on combating piracy and armed robbery against ships in Asia. The Indian Ocean Rim Association IORA, to name a few. In our endeavor to achieve a free and open Indo-Pacific, this is open to all. Japan would like to expand such multilateral cooperation for peace and prosperity in the region. Japan looks forward to working together with ASEAN and Indo-Indian Ocean nations, among others, in this joint endeavor. In closing, let me once again express my sincere appreciation to ORF Kolkata for its effort in organizing today's event. The webinar is well timed, focusing on a very topical theme, and will provide an excellent opportunity to discuss ways to realize peace, prosperity, and security in the Indo-Pacific. I look forward to most productive discussion during the course of today and tomorrow. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, His Excellency Yautaka. May I now request Her Excellency Riva Ganguly Das to deliver the inaugural address.
Excellencies, distinguished panelists and guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to participate in the International Virtual Conference on Exploring Connectivity in the Bay of Bengal region, Importance of India's Northeast. I would like to first congratulate Observer Research Foundation Kolkata and the Consulate General of Japan in Kolkata in partnering with us in organizing this conference on a very topical issue. Robust connectivity is vital to achieving our common goal of prosperous and sustainable Bay of Bengal region. For centuries, people of this region have been connected through cultural, civilizational linkages, which are reflected in their lifestyle, festivals, food habits, clothing, etc. Connectivity and economic growth are directly linked in today's globalized world. Growth in trade, industrial development, and technological advancement go hand in hand with the ease of connecting. When we talk about connectivity, physical connectivity is just one dimension. It includes economic and commercial connectivity, digital connectivity, knowledge connectivity, and people-to-people links, among others. Regional connectivity in the Bay of Bengal region is crucial not just for South Asia, but for the Indo-Pacific region and the world at large. Our Northeast region has been a gateway of India to the world to our east. For centuries, it has facilitated the flow of people, goods, ideas to Southeast Asia and East Asia up to Korea and Japan. The Northeast also binds us with some of our most important neighbors. Thus, it is a vital link between two fundamental pillars of our foreign policy, which is neighborhood first and act east. The region, however, faces the challenge of connectivity due to its peculiar terrain and other factors. We are working with our partner countries at bilateral level through various projects and other means for enhancing connectivity and development of this region. We also work through by multilateral and plurilateral initiatives such as BIMSTEC, BBIN, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal, with the same objective. India and other littoral states around the Bay of Bengal established the Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation, BIMSTEC, in 1997. There is robust cooperation in diverse areas among members of BIMSTEC. India has taken the lead in enhancing regional connectivity under the BIMSTEC framework. India is the lead country in 4 out of 14 sectors identified by BIMSTEC for cooperation, including transport and communication sector. It is a matter of great satisfaction for us that the BIMSTEC master plan for transport connectivity has been finalized, at a working group meeting chaired by India in December 2020. The master plan, prepared in collaboration with Asian Development Bank, has been envisioned as to serve as a strategic document that promotes synergy among various connectivity frameworks, such as the ASEAN Master Plan on Connectivity 2025. The master plan identifies a total of 264 projects involving an estimated cost of $126 billion and $55.2 billion, including and excluding the ongoing projects, over a 10-year horizon from 2018 to 2028. It is encouraging to note that 70 out of the 137 flagship projects with a cost estimate of about $24.9 billion are already under different stages of implementation. We are simultaneously working on establishing legal framework to fully utilize the potential of the connectivity infrastructure. These include the BIMSTEC Coastal Shipping Agreement and the BIMSTEC Motor Vehicle Agreement to facilitate seamless transport of goods across our borders. The first BIMSTEC Ports Conclave was hosted by India in Visakhapatnam in November 2019 to improve connectivity between the ports of the region. India had announced several initiatives at the last BIMSTEC summit in Kathmandu in 2018 to further strengthen BIMSTEC cooperation and capacity building in diverse areas. These initiatives, the initiatives which have already been implemented include the BIMSTEC Startup Conclave, BIMSTEC Military Exercise, second BIMSTEC Disaster Management Exercise, BIMSTEC Seminar on Climate Smart Farming System, and several capacity building courses for the youth from BIMSTEC countries. There is a proposal to further extend the national knowledge network that we have with BIMSTEC countries. This is a project which is underway. These initiatives directly or indirectly contribute to enhancing connectivity in the region. There is an involvement of Northeast in some of these initiatives, including training of 24 candidates from BIMSTEC countries in a course on space and remote sensing at Northeast Space Application Center in Shillong. This was done in January last year. The proposal to extend science and technology interventions in the Northeast region, which is called the Steiner Initiative, to BIMSTEC countries for promoting technology in sectors like agriculture, energy, and waste management. India has been at the forefront in strengthening people-to-people ties by various means. We hosted the 5th meeting of the BIMSTEC network of policy think tanks in January 21. We are now exploring dates for the BIMSTEC water sports and various other initiatives are in the pipeline. No discussion on BIMSTEC and Northeast can be completed without also touching upon the Indo-Pacific, which is an important geographical space that is home to more than 64% of global population and contributes over 60% of global GDP. About half of the global trade takes place through the maritime trade routes in this region. Over the years, this region has seen strong and sustained economic growth spreading across the Pacific Rim, Southeast Asia, South Asia, the Gulf region, and the east and southern coast of Africa. Our Indo-Pacific vision builds on India's Act East policy and the doctrine of security and growth for all in the region, announced by Prime Minister in 2014 and 2015, respectively. Northeast is where the Act East policy and BIMSTEC policy, importance of BIMSTEC in a sense converges. India's Indo-Pacific vision envisages a free, open, inclusive, peaceful, and prosperous Indo-Pacific region built on rules-based international order, sustainable and transparent infrastructure investment, freedom of navigation and overflight, unimpeded lawful commerce, mutual respect for sovereignty, peaceful resolution of disputes, as well as equality of all nations. To give concrete shape to India's vision of the Indo-Pacific, Prime Minister announced the Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative, IPOI, at the 14th East Asia Summit held in Bangkok in November 2019. The focus is on collaborative effort to better manage, conserve, sustain, and secure the maritime domain. India's IPOI does not envisage creation of a new institutional framework and will rely on the leaders-led East Asia Summit framework. It is envisaged to be structure light and cooperation heavy, without being caught up with institutional differences. We are willing to work with everyone in the region, including IORA, BIMSTEC, IOC, etc. Our Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative envisages cooperation and collaboration under 7 pillars, namely maritime security, maritime ecology, maritime resources, capacity building and resource sharing, disaster risk reduction and management, science, technology and academic cooperation, and trade, connectivity, and maritime transport. India would be taking the lead in disaster risk reduction and maritime security pillars of IPOI. While India will be driving force behind all areas identified under the IPOI, we are also exploring partnership with like-minded countries. Since the announcement of the IPOI, Australia and Japan have expressed willingness to work with India on these areas. In fact, Australia and Japan have agreed to lead on IPOI pillars on maritime ecology and connectivity, respectively. Japan's lead on the connectivity pillar of IPOI would be a great fillip for connectivity initiatives in the Indo-Pacific, and this webinar will facilitate greater discussion among all stakeholders on how we can work together to enhance connectivity. In the recent years, India has taken the lead in collaboration with partners in the region on bilateral basis in improving connectivity through mix of instruments, including grants, lines of credit, etc. Our approach is, of course, consultative, viability-driven, and partner-based. It includes roads, shipping lines, ports, air connections, and also digital connectivity. There are real opportunities here for businesses from all our partners. We have announced a 1 billion credit line for connectivity projects in ASEAN. Projects to utilize it are underway. Major connectivity projects are being implemented by India in the region, which includes the Kaladan Transport Project, the Trilateral Highway Project, and East-West Corridor connecting our northeast with Myanmar and Thailand, the Retidim Road in Myanmar, construction of India-Bangladesh Friendship Pipeline and dredging of inland waterways in Bangladesh, Biratnagar Integrated Checkpost with Nepal, reconstruction of railway tracks in Sri Lanka, restoration of some of the pre-1965 train lines in Bangladesh, road projects and power transmission lines in Nepal. India is currently pursuing the Trilateral Highway project connecting India, Myanmar, Thailand, and is also looking to extend it eastwards towards Vietnam and Lao PDR. We are now looking to build connectivity between Andaman and Nicobar and Aceh in Indonesia, focused on Sabang. This was announced in 2018 and it is currently work in progress. Connectivity between Ranong Port in Thailand and Visakhapatnam, Chennai and Kolkata is also being explored. Completion of these projects will have far-reaching economic impact on Northeast and Southeast Asia. Friends, the world is passing through a difficult phase of COVID pandemic. The implications of the pandemic on global economy would be long-lasting, and economies of our region are not immune to it. There are lessons and best practices that have emerged in tackling this challenge that all of us can learn from. I understand that the esteemed panelists would touch upon the dynamics of collaboration between countries of this region in dealing with this challenge. The discussions in the webinar give central place to our Northeast region. Our Prime Minister has noted that the Northeast has the potential to become India's growth engine. Focus of our government has been on improving infrastructure in the region, be it highways, laying of railway tracks, or upgradation of airports or other forms of connectivity. This webinar is a good platform to bring together think tanks, regional experts, and other stakeholders to deliberate upon ways and means to enhance connectivity in the region and also look at the related challenges. I hope that the discussions at this two-day deliberations would come up with some useful suggestions and feedback for policymakers of the region. With these words, I wish the event a great success. I'm confident that the next 2 days will be full of constructive discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Excellency Riva Ganguly Das, for delineating the broad contours of the policy priorities from the perspective of connectivity in the BIMSTEC, in the broader backdrop of the Indo-Pacific, as also bringing in the very important concern of the blue economy. Before I move to Ambassador Karim, I would just request the audience that if there are any questions, Kindly type the same in the chat box so that we can take that up during the discussion session. May I now request His Excellency Ambassador Tariq Karim for his deliberations. Sir.
Thank you, Dr. Niranjan Ghosh. Ladies and gentlemen, at the onset, I wish to thank ORF for inviting me to this very, very important event. This is a timely initiative where a window of opportunity has reopened, and we all need to seize this moment. I congratulate ORF, the Consul General of Japan in Kolkata, and the Ministry of External Affairs, represented here by my good friend, Ambassador Riva Ganguly Das, who just delivered her opening address, General Subrata Shah, ladies and gentlemen. It is a privilege for me to be here this morning or this afternoon to share some of my thoughts. My approach will be to try and first locate contextually the importance of the Northeast within the Bay of Bengal as the gateway that connects the Indian Ocean with the Pacific Oceans. The Bay of Bengal is the largest bay in the world. It's a central and pivotal part of the Indian Ocean and of growing strategic importance to global actors. It is the great middle bay, in my way of thinking, that connects the Indian Ocean with the Pacific Ocean to its west. The Bay of Bengal may be justifiably looked upon as having constituted what was perhaps for eons as an important nodal point that linked countries and the peoples and respective economies and civilizations across the Indian and Pacific Oceans. Trading between nations has been the historical medium and driver for augmenting a nation's wealth. It was facilitated by various trading corridors over land, trails that had existed since time immemorial or been hewn progressively through successive ages, and river and maritime routes across seas, continuously driving and sustaining the time-old desire for augmenting national prosperity and extending influence well beyond one's own charted but very confined territorial awareness. All these served as corridors for connecting peoples, cultures, and ideas, resulting in a steadily growing and ever-expanding sense of global awareness. For India, its entire eastern seaboard is on the Bay of Bengal. Importantly, the Indic culture spread to countries in Southeast and East Asia and the Far East via the Bay of Bengal. Where does the Northeast then configure in today's narrative? Essentially, it is a vital component of India's own aspirations for expanding trade and access to the regions east of India, specifically to Southeast and East Asia, as enunciated in its Act East policy. To operationalize this policy meaningfully, India has to first integrate the Northeast within the framework of connectivity routes in its journey to the East. People tend to forget history. The narrative of Bhutan, Nepal, and Northeast India region of being landlocked is so deeply etched in the minds of many and accepted by so many. Most forget that this is a narrative of very recent origins that made corrosive inroads into regional mindsets in less than 7 decades ago, or maybe a little more. What most people forget is that the entire region was water-linked, even until the early and mid-60s of the 20th century, comprising a closely integrated ecosystem that drove economic prosperity for the greater Bengal Presidency region that not only boasted the highest GDP among entire India and well above the remaining 2 presidencies, but also reportedly boasted the highest per capita GDP in Shillong, which was then the summer capital of the Bengal Presidency. How did this happen? The Bengal presidency, particularly of undivided Bengal and what is known as the Northeast today, were economically and ecologically integrated spaces. There was seamless connectivity which was established with the rivers comprising the main arterial system. A superb railway network was put in place by the late 1800s and augmented the river routes and river hubs. And the roads, very difficult to build in this part of the Indian subcontinent and more difficult to maintain, were basically capillaries carrying back and forth goods and services to the remotest corners and villages of this administrative unit. Arguably, the integrated Bengal presidency transformed the civilizational historical agenda into the most integrated region of the world, and India became known as the jewel of the crown of the British imperial crown. Until we made ourselves each other's enemies and sundered ourselves into separate new Westphalian states, intent on preserving our borders and territorial integrity spaces, jealous of anybody intruding into it. The Northeast is hugely resource-rich, but has been remarkable for being post-partition, the least developed and among the most backward regions, dubiously distinguishing itself and unfairly dubbed for long as the epicenter for various insurgency movements. Bangladesh itself, for long a nodal point in the Bengal presidency, facilitated seamless connectivity of the olden days. It also had consistently championed the need to reconfigure themselves or the countries of the new countries of the region post 1947 in their imaginations, overriding the new Westphalian paradigm of separated sovereign territories that they had become. It led the initiative for formation of SAARC, but realizing that SAARC as originally envisaged was not going anywhere meaningfully, we advocated for sub-regional cooperation within SAARC in 1990, which ultimately in 1997 and what was known as the South Asia nation almost immediately after birth. This also spawned off the initiative for the formation of BIMSTEC, in which Bangladesh also again played a leading role. BIMSTEC has survived, and the old South Asian growth quadrangle was revived once again when a window of opportunity opened in Bangladesh-India bilateral relations in 2009, and leaderships of both the countries with visionary foresight and boldness that characterized the decision-making, forged forward to resetting the bilateral relations and reimagining and reviving the concept of sub-regional connectivity. Old railway routes that had been physically severed and uprooted after partition by Pakistan are all in process of being reconnected and re-energized. Among these prominently are the Dhaka-Kolkata, Khulna-Kolkata routes. The Agartala-Akhara route is on the verge of being operationalized. The Haldibadi-Chilahati route was recently opened for cargo traffic. An extension of that to Jalpaiguri will be for passenger traffic. All the 8 lines that had linked what is now separate Bangladesh with India are in the process of being re-innovated. This will then perhaps restore to some extent the sort of seamless connectivity that the British had used essentially for extracting from its colony, which was its jewel in the crown, transforming or converting the raw materials it's extracted into finished goods way back in the UK, and then retransporting it across the Bay of Bengal back to its colonized spaces for sale. I see no reason why we cannot reimagine and recapture that network that had been left behind by the British, which we so willfully destroyed and disrupted, and use it for our collective well-being and advancement. Yes, we are all sovereign nations. We all value our territorial integrity and space, but there is no reason why we cannot once again reimagine ourselves as an economic and ecologically integrated entity, or geospatial entity. The ecology does not follow the laws of man or the rules of man. We partition the land, but in the process, we also partitioned all the commons, the green and brown and atmospheric commons that actually sustain us. These cannot be maintained, and they are already in the process of attrition. Reviving the river routes is now an important agenda item both for India and Bangladesh. And both countries realize the importance of reviving the inland waterways, not only because it's economic, it's more capable of carrying heavy tonnage goods, and above all, it is at least it is the most environmentally friendly, produces the least carbon footprint for all of us. So very important in today's age and times. Coastal shipping and maritime shipping, which should have been a given, which existed for ages until after 47, have been restored, at least between Bangladesh and India. We have restored them since 2015. I think India has a coastal shipping agreement with Myanmar. What we need to do is reconnect all the coastal seaports that the British had established for their own advantage when they were in charge of India. Bangladesh and Myanmar comprise the western and eastern spans of the geographical bridge that connects Southeast Asia with Southeast and East Asia. The UN ESCAP had been trying to promote the idea and the program of putting in place the Trans-Asian highway and railway that would have connected East and Southeast Asia with South Asia and ultimately extend into West Asia. That has remained unrealized because this bridge has not been operative. Today, while efforts are being made to make this bridge operational, I see them in flames at the point where they meet. It is imperative that all of us join hands to douse these flames as quickly as possible. For India, success of its own Act East policy is contingent upon transforming the Northeast as an enabler for using this trans-regional bridge beyond Bangladesh and Myanmar. With these words, I'll close my opening remarks. I wish this conference all success in its deliberations. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Ambassador Karim, for a very detailed presentation on the various opportunities and the challenges that we are going to face or that are impending, in fact, presently as also in the coming future. And with that, I would like to go to Lieutenant General Subroto Saha, the Director, School of Military Affairs, Strategy and Logistics, Rashtriya Raksha University, and member Security Advice, National Security Advisory Board. Lieutenant General Saha, it's over to you.
A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. To begin with, I wish to thank the chair, Shri Nilanjan Ghosh, and Anusuya Bosu Chaudhary for inviting me to this event, and my congratulations to the ORF for conducting this event and inviting us all here. His Excellency Mr. Nakamura Yutaka, Consulate General of Japan in Kolkata, Ma'am Riva Ganguly Das, Secretary East, Ministry of External Affairs, very respected Ambassador Tariq Karim, political analyst and independent consultant, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for this opportunity. We've heard, at some length, both the ambassador as well as Ambassador Tariq Karim, emphasizing on how important this whole business is of connectivity. The point has been, I think, emphasized over and over again, and I think I will, build on that, because that ultimately is where the whole thing matters. If you were to just go back to the way Ambassador Tariq Karim recalled how in that integrated Bengal presidency, this was the region producing the highest connectivity. So therefore, I think we also need to recall the fact, this being the 50th year of the 1971 India-Pakistan war, the liberation of Bangladesh. Today we can afford to, think of this because Bangladesh is liberated. Bangladesh was liberated, and unfortunately, despite that major achievement of history, major achievement of geography, with so much loss of blood, it was almost, again gone with the assassination of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman on 15th August 1975. It has taken a while to bring this the situation back to where it ought to be, and quite clearly, I think at the root of this all, if connectivity is there, equally important is this facet of security. So therefore, now that we've had two talks on connectivity and the other one in the larger context, let me try and focus on the facets of security, because if we are looking at the Indo-Pacific as the larger vision, via the Bay of Bengal as highlighted as the largest bay, and Northeast India, so somewhere I think security has to be a major concern. So now if we were to see how this whole area is emerging, why I say security cooperation is an important element, because ultimately BIMSTEC is looking forward to connect the countries through land as well as through the seas. So unless we deal with the dynamics of threats to the multiple projects that have been highlighted quite lucidly in the last two talks, it is going to be quite a challenge as we go forward. Now, linked to this is the fact that development and peace in India's northeast becomes pivotal for the Bay of Bengal and the Indo-Pacific, for all the good reasons that have already been highlighted. The fact is, yes, there is a lot in common between our BIMSTEC countries. Most of them are committed entirely to democracy. They are either maritime nations, and the good part about the BIMSTEC is it is not only about nations that are connected by seas, it takes care of Bhutan, Nepal, whose dependency very much is also on the seas for their growth and progress. And of course, the strong cultural, civilizational commonalities that we have between our countries, and the similar threats to our security from both traditional and the non-traditional sources. Having said that, I think we need to also underscore the challenges that are there for the collaboration that we envisage. I think our nations are really at very different stages of development. So if we are at different stages of development, we have to be quite mindful of each other's priorities as we talk about collaboration. Even in the facet of security, quite often, we talk about BIMSTEC as an alternative for SARC. To my mind, we need to look at the two groupings as two distinct groupings, because countries of the BIMSTEC may have a certain view on Pakistan, for example, which need not converge with India's view. So I think we need to look at BIMSTEC, we need to look at our collaboration with more countries in Southeast Asia through this regional grouping, to the extent possible, minimizing the overlap or impacts of such divergences. That said, I think it is important to now start building institutions that can bring about integration amongst the countries. So again, there is nothing wrong in taking a leaf from, despite all the political deadlocking, the number of institutions of the SAARC which seem to be performing quite well. Today we are well into the beginning of BIMSTEC, but we do not have very many institutions, that are promoting the integration that we are seeking to achieve. We have heard several speakers talk, both the speakers talk about the trade potential. I think it is important to do an assessment, as I said, keeping in mind the varying priorities of development amongst the member countries. I think that would certainly help in promoting the kind of multilateral collaboration that we are looking at. This has been spoken about on the four sectors that India has been providing the lead, and getting back to the importance of acting east through northeast. I think it is important to, move northeast away from its, business of all the time perceived from the context of remoteness to the center stage and unlock its potential as we go forward. To that extent, I think it is important for the Northeast, and I take this liberty because all my life has been with soldiers of the Northeast, almost close to 4 decades. I think even from the Northeast, there is a requirement of, coming out of this inward-looking mindset and this, I think, too prolonged fear of influx of outsiders. I think it is important to come out of that mindset to be able to do justice, to be able to sort of optimize the kind of resources that the Northeast has. Today, even though most of the insurgencies are under control and the talks seem to be about to deliver anytime now, but that said, the parallel economy which is happening and the issues of governance which are there, that really need to be looked at if we wish to create that right environment in which people would want to come and invest and seek, well, I seek, as I would say, what could be called very legitimate return on their investments. So in order to do so, I think we need to rapidly reduce the areas declared as disturbed, and having done so, reduce the component of security forces that are deployed today. There is potential to do, I think, a lot of reduction in that, but that requires the political will to reduce the number of disturbed areas that we are talking about. And having done so, I think it is important, as Ambassador Tariq also brings out, to encourage a lot of broader border trade and local economic activity for the Northeast, first with Bangladesh, then with Myanmar, and of course with Bhutan and Nepal, because once we do that, only then that very important requirement of bringing Northeast out of that inward-looking mindset into looking outwards. I think it is important to have some strong networks and champions who can promote this facet of Northeast as we are talking about. We've heard some reference to military exercises that are happening between India, Japan, and several other countries. So similarly, I think it may not be a bad idea to have some of these military exercises, rather more of these military exercises in and around Northeast and the Bay of Bengal to help create that right kind of environment. And similarly, a lot of these BIMSTEC events, of course, now it's mostly online. It would be a good idea to hold them at different locations in the Northeast so that we are able to take this agenda forward. That said, I think we cannot look away from this major China factor for reasons very well known to this group. I do not need to re-emphasize anything afresh. Besides this historical involvement with insurgencies in Northeast and some attempts to coordinate activities of various insurgent groups, we have to be quite conscious of the fact that there are competing visions of connectivity over here. What was highlighted is the multiple connectivity projects of BIMSTEC, of India, but we have to see them also in the context of what China is visualizing. So unless and until we are looking at how we are going to balance these competing influences, I think it would be important that we look at it from that perspective in order to take it forward. Having said that, I think we also need to understand the intersection between the major trafficking routes and the economic corridors. I will not labor more than just bringing out the point in this limited time. I think it's important to plot it and see it, and the slide in front of you shows just that. And the fact that, well, Myanmar is amongst the largest producers and suppliers of opium. These are harsh realities that we have to contend with when we are looking at the security and the connectivity in this region. If we see the number of projects that China has in Myanmar, for example, and if you were to compare them with the kind of challenges that we face along the Myanmar border, the sooner we are able to overcome these and look at common interests, I think it would be much of what we are sort of envisaging and visualizing will only remain on paper or perhaps in our dreams. So we have to face the realities of all of this, the kind of insurgent camps that still happen to operate from Myanmar, the smuggling of arms, narcotics, and fake Indian currency. I think these are realities that have to be dealt with. Of course, the road connectivity projects have been spoken about, and we are also aware that, for example, the connectivity project over here between Paletwa and Mizoram, this is stuck because of the, shall we say, the conflict between the Myanmar army and the insurgent groups operating over here. The whole project has been stuck up. It was, I think, supposed to have been completed by 2014. It is primarily these security concerns that is holding on to it. So I think managing relations with Myanmar would be very important, and we must not forget the fact that India's policy of acting east was after Myanmar joined the Asean. So that's a reality which we have to deal with, and to see how we improve and make sure that our relationship with Myanmar remains on the right track. These are some projects of India and Myanmar, which is important. And I think for the 15 minutes assigned to me, I must try and wrap up here by saying that BIMSTEC's success and Northeast development are interlinked and interdependent. Both have to draw from each other to flourish. In a sense, we have to co-create this power of one, translate the charter which is given of the BIMSTEC to very well-defined goals that must provide the strategic direction. We have to create effective institutions and framework for better integration, and we must create a much larger buy-in with more people's involvement in order to do this. Needless to reiterate that India must lead with mechanisms in place to get the bang for the buck. The Seven Sisters must come together to be in the drive, and Northeast must develop her power to drive. I'll stop at that. And once again, thank you very much for this opportunity. I wish the event very well. God bless. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant General Shah, for a fabulous deliberation. Co-create the power of one, and Northeast must deliver. The Seven Sisters must collaborate with each other. Of course, in fact, as Ambassador Karim also mentioned, that it needs to be looked as an integrated bloc in totality, which is presenting itself as a viable destination for of various opportunities in terms of trade, investment, connectivity, and a host of other things. So, well, as we in fact come to the end of this session, it becomes imperative to at least address two questions which have come from the audience. One by Shomi Purokayastho. The question is, what will be the impact of recent military coup in Myanmar and ongoing pro-democracy protest in Thailand on the ongoing connectivity initiatives such as the Kaladan multimodal project and India-Myanmar-Thailand Trilateral Highway? Of course, as we all know, that Bangladesh has requested India to be the fourth node in this entire triad of India-Myanmar Thailand Trilateral Highway. So may I request Ambassador Karim and then Lieutenant General Shah to address this particular question?
Well, I'll give you my 2 cents worth of how I look at the situation. What's happening in Myanmar is not, I think, totally, let's say, it cannot be totally disconnected from the perception that General Subrata mentioned a few minutes ago. China is a big player in Myanmar. It has deep roots and connections with the Myanmar military. On the other hand, the democratic strain was also developing. The fact that ordinary people continue to be protesting against the coup in the streets of Myanmar several weeks after the coup is an indication that something is happening within Myanmar. It is therefore, similarly, what's happening in Thailand is also the aspiration for the people to be part of the process, development process, to be part of the governance process. So I think these are indicators of a region in flux, and it will be important of how the neighbors play their own hands, how they help stabilizing these different outbursts, and hopefully such stabilization will also reinforce the desire to reconnect. After all, people's aspirations is primarily for self-development, and that self-development cannot happen in splendid isolation. If that realization is awakened, hopefully we will see some changes. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Lieutenant General.
Okay, thank you. I think it's a very, very valid concern on what's happening in Myanmar. Allow me to reiterate what I had said. It's only when Myanmar joined ASEAN that India's act list could be thought about. So Myanmar's stability, and of course, beyond that, whether it is Thailand or any other country, is crucial. And this restlessness and shall we say a terrible sense of urgency that we are noticing in China since 2012, 2013, we are seeing the effects of that coming almost everywhere. I mean, the kind of consolidation of power in one single authority and the effects of that are visible from the time that we have seen the entire power, whether it is the military commission, whether it is the political power being vested into one single authority, we are seeing the impact of that along the line of actual control. We are seeing it in the South China Sea, we are seeing in the East China, we are seeing it we are seeing it across. So clearly, this insecurity which comes internal to China gets manifested by greater assertion outside. And I would not at all disagree with what Ambassador Tariq has said. What's happening inside Myanmar cannot be looked at in isolation for Myanmar or for any other country. So I think how we are going to manage China, how we are going to manage the assertions of China as a collective of nations who believe in democracy and who would like to go along the path of democracy, I think would be the biggest challenge for any collaboration to happen. So to my mind, it is important for India to be India, indeed, all the countries involved, to be mindful of what's happening in Myanmar, to be able to deal with the regime which is there, keeping in mind what is the priority of our interests. And our priority, I think, has to be stability in Myanmar. Our priority has to be to promote what is more important in this conflict or competition of interest which is there of China and the rest of the countries here. So that much from my side. It's back to you, Mr. Nilanjan Ghosh.
Thank you. And there is another question from Professor Rahori Chatterjee. Is there any need for coordination between BIMSTEC and Asean, as there is an overlap of membership for some countries which may impose conflicting demands on them based on the needs of the two organizations? In fact, I would also request maybe Excellency also to address this apart from Lieutenant General and Ambassador Karim. So, Excellency Nakamura, would you like to also address this question, that is there a need for coordination between BIMSTEC and Asean, as there is an overlap of membership for some countries which may impose conflicting demands?
Every organizations and reason to, be formed. So each organization will have the process of dealing with the conflict within that, and also with regard to the situation in Myanmar. Not only the area, Asian countries, neighboring countries, but the entire world is watching, and they are putting their utmost effort to to calm down the situation. So this organization issue are perhaps not necessarily important to deal with the particular issue.
Ambassador Karim, so the question is that, is there a need for a coordination between the BIMSTEC and Asean?
I think I look at BIMSTEC, look at BIMSTEC. There are 3 nations from ASEAN and 4 from SAARC which have come together here. I, in fact, have been saying that perhaps we need to look at a Bay of Bengal community emerging somewhere. Which would mean also bringing in Malaysia and Indonesia into it, which form the southeastern parameters of the Bay of Bengal configuration. This would, in a sense, be the bridge between Southeast Asia and ASEAN. I mean, the two organizations can still functioning, but the BIMSTEC plus configuration may perhaps give it greater dynamism. The previous Secretary General of BIMSTEC had also said something to this effect at a webinar in which he participated, organized by me in Bangladesh. We need to see how this dynamics goes. BIMSTEC is an institution, ASEAN is an institution. BBIN is not an institution, it is essentially an intergovernmental framework. BBIN has a solid agenda going forward, needs an institution to give it push. BIMSTEC does have defined agenda, but it's still grappling with how to operationalize them, but it has an institution. My argument is, can we energize the BIMSTEC by making BBIN succeed? And then can we expand this by accretion going eastward? Who knows? Maybe one day BIMSTEC will and ASEAN will converge. But that is not something I would try to push artificially because it creates its own backlash internally. Thank you.
Lieutenant General.
Okay, I think it's a very valid question, like should they be coordinating? And why is it a valid question? Because as I look at it, BIMSTEC can actually be um, a westward extension of the ASEAN. It can act as a bridge, really. But in order to do so, I think BIMSTEC has to make itself relevant to the ASEAN. And how does BIMSTEC make itself relevant to ASEAN? For that, BIMSTEC has to strengthen itself. And in order to strengthen itself, BIMSTEC must have its institutions. Now, like Ambassador Karim said, that, well, BIMSTEC has a well-defined agenda, but where are the institutions to carry that agenda? We all say SARC is not successful, but the fact of the matter is the SARC Arbitration Council is functioning. There is a South Asian University in place. There is a SARC Development Fund. There is a SARC Regional Standards Organization. And there are regional centers which are there of the SARC with specific mandates, whether it is agriculture, energy, culture, disaster management. We have seen even in COVID times, the SARC has come together. And especially the more recent one, when for a change, Kashmir was not mentioned even in a COVID format, even in a COVID forum. So the point is, there are institutions which we must have for the BIMSTEC to get the kind of strength that it requires to become relevant to ASEAN and to become, as I said, a potential bridge between ASEAN countries and the South Asian region. So I think that would be my submission.
Okay. I think we can take up one more question. It's open to anybody who intends to take this up. This is from Krishna P. Sharma. This is from the perspective of Nepal. Now, Nepal is a member of the BRI, that's what he says, and also a member of the BIMSTEC. Now it's going to become a member of that US-Nepal MCC, the Millennium Challenge project soon, which is a part of the Indo-Pacific program. Do you think that it will be beneficial to India in future to reduce influence of China in Nepal? Ambassador Karim.
I think having stated right in the onset of my own delivery that we are now, for better or for worse, sovereign independent nations, we each have the right to determine how we configure or reconfigure our relations and with other countries. As far as Bangladesh is concerned, we have made it abundantly clear again and again, particularly during the governance period of present Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, and taking up from the statement made by Bangabandhu that we desire friendship with all and we hold malice towards none. We believe we must have relations with everyone. Relations with one are not necessarily at the expense of relations with other. I repeated this every time I was asked this question when I was High Commissioner to India. Our relations with India are not at the expense of etc. So I think if we leave it to the better sense of the country, large region, to determine how they chart their course, and we hope that better sense will prevail, that they do it for common good rather than for fostering animosity between nations.
Lieutenant General, would you like to?
See, the question is what should India do, or should India try and reduce the influence of China in Nepal? Quite clearly what Nepal, Mr. Sharma, is doing, it is acting in its own interests. I mean, it is seeing where does it have to get the more out of its strategic location, and that location becomes more and more strategically significant, whether you look at it from the point of view of India, whether you look at it from the point of view of US, or from the other side, from the point of view of China. And quite clearly, Nepal is beginning to see that, and it is playing out exactly how it should, keeping their own interests primary. If you recall, a couple of years back when we had the first BIMSTEC military exercise, Nepal had responded differently to it. So obviously Nepal would be looking at its interest to be primary. So now again, I go back to my earlier point. If BIMSTEC were to get stronger, if BIMSTEC were to make its framework more robust, quite clearly, Nepal will also look at BIMSTEC differently. So, so for Nepal to be able to commit itself, it must see strength, and Nepal needs all the reasons for looking at BIMSTEC and the potential of its connectivity. But unless and until it starts seeing some sort of realization of its hopes, obviously it will want to keep its cards close to its chest and act with multiple options open to itself. So therefore, again, I think it is important to realize that every country of the BIMSTEC or such regional groupings will first act in their own interest and then look at the grouping in order to pursue those interests further, and not the other way around. So it's back to you.
Thank you. I think with that, we come to the end of the inaugural session. This has been a very rich session in terms of deliberations, because a host of issues have been flagged off, which essentially lays the foundation for the next 3 sessions. Now, there are, of course, very, very critical geostrategic questions that have emerged in the context of the Northeast's location, in the possible institutional setup of the BIMSTEC, the way, in fact, the various geoeconomic and the geostrategic forces are unfolding in the Indo-Pacific as a whole. At the same time, the concerns of the economy and whether the Northeast is going to be the prime driver or supposed to the prime support and be the hinterland for being a growth driver of some of the growth hubs, that also remains to be seen. And so what needs to be done? Because we all know that it is rich in resources, rich in all forms of capital. So what needs to be the policy push as far as the Northeast is concerned? Now, it is not only from the perspective of India, from the perspective of India's Act East policy, but in fact, from the perspective of the entire Bay of Bengal region, the BIMSTEC region and the Indian Ocean realm, that the Northeast needs to be integrated, looked at in an integrated manner. And that is also because of the fact that it is going to affect all endeavors of our entire human existence, whether we talk of the economic, we talk of the social, we talk of the environmental, and eventually the mood of this deliberation is how we essentially get into, sorry, I'm just how we essentially get into supporting or reconciling between something that is apparently irreconcilable, that is the trinity of efficiency and sustainability. Thank you, and with that, we come to the end of the inaugural session. Thanks to all the panelists for excellent deliberations.
Thank you, Dr. Ghosh.
Thank you,
Panel, for the engaging and rich discussion.
With this, we come to an end with the inaugural session. We begin the first session of our program, Proximity to Connectivity, Importance of India's Northeast BIMSTEC, at 3:30 p.m. sharp, requesting everyone to join through the link
and password that have been provided. Thank you.